Okay, this lesson is our first lesson on ecosystems at risk, and today's goal is to learn what ecosystems are. So by the end of the lesson, we need to explain what an ecosystem is, explains what makes up an ecosystem, and explain why they are so important. Well, an ecosystem is basically a group of animals, plants, interacting together in one area. And ecology is the science that examines the relationship between those organisms and their living and non-living environment. Geographers investigate the relationship between those organisms and the biophysical environment. We're talking about the biophysical environment. We're talking about the biophysical interactions: biosphere, lithosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere. An ecosystem is basically those relationships between those organisms, and those ecosystems are dynamic, which means they're constantly changing. Why do you think they need to be constantly changing? Well, because they're adapting to different climate conditions, they're adapting to different relationships within that ecosystems. By studying these different relationships, we can distinguish between different ecosystems. As we got there, a little definition: an ecosystem can be defined as an identified system of interdependent relationships between living organisms and their biophysical environment. What makes up an ecosystem? Well, we've got variations of ecosystems due to temperature, precipitation, and human interaction. So nature, for it to exist, needs temperature and water, and that's why we get those different variations. And humans, unfortunately, had big issues with it. We can classify ecosystems into two: aquatic and terrestrial biomes. Aquatic means underwater, so what lives in a river, what lives in the sea, they're aquatic. Terrestrial is what lives on land. An ectone is a zone in between those ecosystems, that fuzzy bit. Like in nature, we don't have, a line between aquatic and terrestrial. Some ecosystems have a bit of both connections, and that's why coral reefs are those would be classified as an ectone. So yeah, that's what makes up an ecosystem. What we have is the ecosphere. We looked at biophysical interactions. We looked at four spheres. Well, there are more spheres, and this is just one of them. The ecosphere is the total aggregate of the world's ecosystem. The study of ecology, investigating the interactions with the ecosphere, is concerned with the 5 levels organisations of organisms, populations, communities, ecosystems, and ecosphere. The diagram shows you what we're talking about. An organism is one of them. Population is a series of the same species. A community is those species working together as a community. An ecosystem is those dynamic relationships, and the ecosystem is the total amount of all the world's living things. To identify organisms, there are a variety of methods. However, for general purpose in geography, we classify organisms into producers, consumers, decomposers. Producers, a plant; consumer, something that eats a plant or another animal; a decomposer, when something is dead, it decomposes that. Both animals and plants range in size from tiny microscopic organisms to huge organisms. The obviously largest is the blue whale. Decomposers can also range from microscopic to mushroom size. So we've got to remember the ecosphere is tiny to huge in size. A species is a single organism that can reproduce its own kind. So when we're looking at a single organism, that's what we're looking at. There are around 5 to 30 million species in the world today. The vast majority are insects and nematodes. A nematode is basically a worm. So insects and worms, they're basically the main species of the world. Where species lives, the habitat. The characteristics of a habitat depend on if you're a terrestrial ecosystem, temperature and precipitation; aquatic, temperature, nutrient levels; turbidity, salinity, and water currents. Turbidity is how clear the water is. So that's what the ecosphere is, and hopefully this is a good introduction to what ecosystems at risk are. Remember, ecosystem is a series of organisms working together in a community with a relationship, and ecosystem is the total amount of the things that are living as well. I hope that's a good introduction to ecosystems at risk. Lots of keywords. Look forward to listening to hear what you've written down, keywords and their definitions. Okay, thanks.